right, welcome into Sports B.I.T. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com. Wednesday, April 27th, deep dive today, NFL Draft. We'll go through the 3 games tonight in the NBA playoffs. A lot to get to. Busy show, another huge injury in the NBA. All that coming up. We start with bad beats, Teddy. Pacers money line up 17, up 13 in the fourth quarter. 9 points, and they you had to sweat that out if you took the points too.
Oh, my God. I got Toronto +7 in my pocket, and all of a sudden it's a sweat. I'm sorry, I got Indiana +7 in my pocket, and all of a sudden it's a big sweat. A game where they led wire to wire until that 21-2 Raptors run in the fourth. And during that entire span, the Pacers, they looked like high schoolers. They got rattled. That could have been a brutal beat for Indy Packers if Solomon Hill doesn't hit that 3 to cut the lead to 1 in the final seconds. And, of course, every Pacers bettor in the world, Pauly, wanted Hill's 3 at the buzzer to be ruled too late, because the last thing you want with your dog is a loss in overtime. No OT, please, no OT.
Yeah, you got that right.
If you had the money line, you wanted it to go in, because then you're still alive. If you had the points, let it miss, too late, no good.
It was a juicy money line as well. How about it's same thing here? We've been talking about all week. George stepped up, but where was the supporting cast again to help him out?
Yeah, nowhere to be found, and especially when Toronto went on that huge fourth quarter run. The supporting cast, dismal on both ends of the floor. Paul George, 11-19, 39 points. He was a monster last night.
Yeah.
The rest of the Pacers, 22 of 54. George hit a third of their shots again, combining for 60 points. But George wasn't the only guy who's, again, we've beaten the same drum. The rest of the Pacers.
Yep.
What about the Raptors?
Yeah. Well, hey, take DeRozan off the milk cart, at least for a game. He had 34 points and got to the line. He was 12 of 13 from the line. But again, Lowry stunk again. I can't believe it.
Yeah, 3 of 11, 4 assists for Lowry. And Toronto got hot at the right time, but when your best player is hit, or I don't know, is Lowry their best player? Is DeRozan their best player? Their co-best players? Lowry's got to show up in the postseason, or Toronto's. I'm not convinced they'll win Game 6 in Indiana and win this series if Lowry doesn't play better, let alone make any noise in the second round.
Hey, Vogel, take a timeout. What the hell are you doing? That was a huge run. He didn't take a timeout until Toronto came all the way back to tie it, and the lead was gone. Too late, buddy. Bad job.
I'm with you on that one. I was wondering about that as well. And especially, they cut the lead to 2. And then you're like, okay, call time.
Yes.
And then, of course, they waste that one last possession. They throw a turnover, an easy dunk on the other end. Now the score's tied, and the crowd is insane. And now you call the timeout. And, and that was after what they felt like about 10 possessions in a row where the Pacers had just had terrible offensive execution.
Well, great comeback, and the Raptors saved their season. Now with a 3-2 series lead, they hit the road for Game 6. I think Terry Stotts is a bad beat for Coach of the Year. No one expected much out of the Blazers. They lost 4 starters. They get the 5 seed in the West. How do you give it to Kerr when Luke Walton had a better record?
And Luke Walton, the whole tone of the season for Golden State was set by Luke Walton. I would give this award to Walton before I gave it to Kerr.
Agreed.
But I give it to Stotts, obviously, before I gave it to either one of those two. Was he second at least? But that's the way it is. The Coach of the Year it's a popularity contest, and Golden State set the record, so Kerr's got to be Coach of the Year, and yada yada. But let's not forget, of the 30 NBA teams heading into the season, Portland was lined as the 29th best team when it came to season wins.
Bingo.
They were they were ahead of Philadelphia,
yep.
But they were like a half win behind Minnesota and a half win behind Brooklyn.
Yep.
And they ended up being the 5 seed in the West. I'll call it a bad beat. Yeah, bad beat for Terry Stotts.
Okay. Were the Reds a bad beat?
I think so. We were just talking about this on yesterday's show, where Cincy's not getting the quality starts and nobody's lasting 6 innings. And then finally, Finnegan throws 6 innings of shutout ball, a rare instance of a starter throwing a gem. And then Brian Price leaves him in one batter too long in the 7th, and he gives up the 3-run homer to tie it. And then Cingrani comes in and gives it the game winner in relief, and it's same story for Cincinnati. Tough beat if you had the Reds in that one.
Yeah. One thing on the NBA playoffs. Favorites now 28-7 straight up. To bad bets. The Celtics, they had an opportunity. They could have had a 20-point lead. The Hawks couldn't make a damn thing, but the Celtics couldn't extend that lead.
No, no. Atlanta opens up the game shooting 6 of 34. And Boston, they led by 10. But, I mean, that was a situation where if the Celtics came out and brought their A game, they'd have been up by 20. They'd have taken the crowd out of it, and Atlanta had been in big, big trouble. And then when the Hawks got hot, the Celtics had absolutely no answers. But again, talking about what we've shown you here on Sports B.I.T. You don't want to toot your own horn, but too much. But the goal is to give you guys good information. We showed you the splits on yesterday's show about Isaiah Thomas, home road in the series. You know the numbers for Thomas. What, 3 of 12 for 7 points. He was a minus 33 in that ball game. And, of course, worth noting, he hobbled off the court in the fourth quarter with a sprained ankle. Jonas Jerebko, another guy who was a monster in the 2 games in Boston. Series shifts to Atlanta. Jerebko, 6 points, 8 boards. Not a good game.
Some more bad bets. Major League Baseball. How about the Blue Jays? Sale does it again. And the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of bad bets last night. You know, the Blue Jays got crushed. They're still not hitting lefties. The Yankees took heavy money. You know, they opened up as dogs. They closed minus 120. They were never in the game at Texas. And the D-backs, Shelby Miller, he's falling apart right now. This is a guy who was, again, he didn't win games last year with Atlanta, but from an advanced metric standpoint, he was a monster. And he was a monster in St. Louis the year before that. Now here he is in Arizona. Well, just look at the ratio. Last year, 173 strikeouts and 73 walks. This year, he's got 10 strikeouts to 11 walks and got lit up by his former team in the Cardinals, last night.
Hey, you know what? And I think it's time to sound the alarms in Houston. Hit the panic button. Blown out again. They have the worst record in the American League.
Yeah, the only team in the majors with a worse record than the Astros is the Atlanta Braves. Atlanta was supposed to be a bottom feeder. Houston was supposed to contend for the World Series title, just like they did last year. Not happening for the Astros. And again, we talked about this on yesterday's show. You know, Houston, I continue to think that there will be a time this season when things come together for the Astros, but you don't want to catch that falling knife. People say, look for the value, look for the value. Fine, look for the value after the markets crash on them and they start to win again. That's when you find the value. When you have a team that's highly ranked that's falling, that's not a falling knife you want to try to catch.
Astonishing numbers there. Up next, big game breakdown, the 3 big matchups in the NBA on Sports B.I.T. Betting Insight today.
Visit SBRUFC.com to find the best odds and sportsbook bonuses available for UFC 197.
All right, big game breakdown. Let's start with the Hornets and the Heat. Miami at home, 5.5, 193 the total. I'm sure you saw the stats. When a series is tied at 2, the team that wins game 5 wins the series 83% of the time. Teddy, all the talking heads are getting into all these great adjustments that Charlotte's been making in the last 2 games that they have made. What's really going on?
Well, yeah, I mean, Miami posted these brilliant offensive numbers in the first 2 games of this series. Off the charts numbers that we talked about several times here on Sports B.I.T. And then they went to Charlotte and they just fell off the map. The offense didn't work for extended stretches of both game 3 and game 4. The question is, was it really about good offense and bad defense in the first 2 games and then bad offense and good defense in the second 2 games? Or is it just basketball being basketball? And boy, you know, you look at the comment from Steve Clifford after game 2. Remember, they got waxed in game 2 again. Quote, but shooting is not their strength. Now, of course, 538.com, we bring them up a number of times here on the show. They do a lot of good analytic work, and they broke it all down. They use SportsView data. You know what? But game 1 and game 2 versus game 3 and game 4, Miami's been getting the same quality of shots. They simply made tough shots in the first 2 games and missed those tough shots in the second 2 games. So the answer is, it's not Charlotte's defensive adjustments. It's not Clifford being a genius. It's Miami made some shots early and they missed some shots late. And of course, game 5 on their home floor, you know, if it's anything like Atlanta, Boston, they'll be making shots again back on their home floor this evening.
Well, something that's been huge has been Jeremy Lin off the bench and what he's been. The last 2 games, 59 minutes, 39 points, plus 34 when he's on the court for the Hornets. This guy's been awesome. And something that's interesting, a fan put together something on social media about, hey, look at this. He's getting fouled a lot. He's not getting the calls. The NBA took a look at it. A New York newspaper picked it up. Guess what? He's doubling his free throw attempts now. He's getting to the line a lot since that video came out. That's something to look at, too.
Linsanity!
Yes.
But of course, and again, the mainstream media, they're going to talk about, Charlotte got back in the series when Frank Kaminsky and Alex Jefferson were put in the starting lineup. But you know what? Static. Jeremy Lin's been the key. Not Kaminsky, not Jefferson. Look at this. The last two Charlotte wins. When Kaminsky and Jefferson were on the floor together, it's 107 minutes. They were minus 11. Mm-hmm. All the other minutes, they're plus 31. Kaminsky and Jefferson combined to shoot 15 of 40 in those games. And in each game, Miami's best offensive quarter was the first when Kaminsky and Jefferson were starting together. So, yeah, they started to win when those two went into the starting lineup, but to say it's because they went into the starting lineup, that causality simply isn't there.
Two late games. This first one, 7 o'clock Pacific. Blazers in Los Angeles. Portland now favored. Lane 3, 197.5. Another Sports B.I.T show. Another key injury to talk about. Blake Griffin out for the rest of the playoffs, Teddy.
Yeah, and I mean, with CP3 going down and Blake Griffin going down literally within minutes of one another, it's not pretty for the Clips, right? I mean, what do you say when you lose your two best players in a half of a playoff game? I mean, it's brutal. Now, you wonder, though, I mean, the Clips loose and aggressive here? Is this a situation where, all right, we've lost our guys, let's go out and see what we can do, we got something to prove? Or do you think that maybe the Clips, we were talking about this in the regular season, that the motivation for some of these teams wasn't that great because they didn't want to go up against the Warriors?
Yeah, well,
do the Clips want to go up against the Warriors? Are they going to bring it to the max? You know, this isn't like the regular season where they can find some bodies to fill in. Bodies don't really work at this stage of the campaign.
Well, I think they're going to be loose because everyone's counting them out and everyone's going to pick Portland to win the series. But they're turning into Memphis, Teddy. They're running out of bodies. Remember, Redick has got the sore heel. Redick's got the sore heel, and Crawford looks like he's tired too.
Oh, yeah, Crawford looks really worn down. Again, Crawford in his prime was an elite player, and, I don't know, the guys, I don't even want to talk about the voting where he wins Sixth Man of the Year again. But the bottom line is, in this series, Jamal Crawford is 3 of 13 from three-point range. That's 23%. That's not what you want or what you need from a player of his caliber at this stage of the campaign. If Crawford doesn't rain threes, this series is going 6 games, and it ain't going to be LA coming out on top.
Well, you know what would be nice? If you pay someone $88 million and you could actually count on him to score and you could run a play for him. And that's not the case with DeAndre Jordan. Maybe a blessing in disguise that he left the Mavs at the altar. $88 million, can't run a play for him. And not only that, you lose your top 2 players, and you can't even have this guy on the floor in crunch time because he can't make a free throw.
Yeah, that's the stuff that makes you nuts. But, Doc Rivers has done some really good things in this series, even with the limitations that DeAndre Jordan brings. And, of course, they didn't bring DeAndre Jordan back and give him $88 million for his offense. They brought him back because he's an elite rebounder and he's an elite defender, and that hasn't changed. That being said, it'd be nice to have be able to have your elite rebounder and elite defender on the floor during crunch time of the fourth quarter. But,
sure.
Doc's been using these traps to make Lillard and McConnell give the ball up and force the bigs to make plays. Who's been making those plays, Pauly?
Repeat after me. No one has more rebounds and assists in the last 2 games than Mason Plumlee. Are you serious?
That's insane. Mason Plumlee, who averaged 7.7 rebounds and 2.8 assists during the regular season. In the Blazers' 2 wins in Rip City, 35 boards, and the one that made me nuts, 19 assists from Mason Plumlee. Doc's been asking his big to make plays, and Mason Plumlee has been the guy who's been making those plays. Of course, we've seen a 5-point line move after the CP3 injury, but compared the line opened with the Clips -2, and then that was after CP3 was already hurt. And then when the Griffin news came out, the line swung 5 points towards Portland. If Mason Plumlee plays like Mason Plumlee has been playing, that line move fully warranted.
Last game before the NFL draft, Houston at Golden State Warriors 9, 211.5 the total. No Curry, which Livingston's doing a great job. Better job defensively out of Golden State and a better job on the boards. He's running the offense well. 50 points on 20 of 38 shooting when he's running it, and 21 assists versus 5 turnovers. So far, so good here with the Warriors. At least, short sample, but with Curry out.
Yeah, I mean, the Warriors as a team, they've had a pretty decent floor game without Steph Curry on the floor in this series. Look at the numbers. Without Curry, 153 minutes. They're plus 33. That's plus 10 per game. When Curry's not on the floor, that's far better than it was in the regular season. They've gone on a couple of monster runs without him, including what they did in the second half of Game 4 at Houston. But the bottom line is that, Golden State's not dead without Curry for a couple of weeks. If he's out for the rest of the season, they're probably dead. If they're without him for just a series, maybe they're live. But this is my question to you, Paul. What's the Rocket attitude going to be tonight? Is this a situation where they think, all right, hey, we can still win this now Curry's hurt? They might match up well against the Trailblazers or the Clippers in the next round? Or is this a spot where Houston's just, bye guys, bye Felicia, let's go to Saint somewhere, and sit on a beach for a couple of weeks.
I'll take the easy way out, and I'll say, let me watch the first 5 minutes of the game. Because after what happened, that's what we thought what would happen in the last game when Curry leaves at halftime and the game's tied. Then they come out and the Warriors run them off their own floor. So if Golden State crowd going nuts, they can get some rest. Portland, LA might go 7 games. If Houston falls behind early, I think they'll roll over.
I'm with you on that. That is, the Rockets have been many things this year. One thing they have not been is a team with a lot of quote-unquote character.
Now, let's make you some money up next. NFL Draft, and we'll go over all these props, plus the play of the day on Sports B.I.T. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Visit SBRUFC.com to find the best odds and sportsbook bonuses available for UFC 197.
Wrapping it up on Sports B.I.T. Betting Insight today. Technical difficulties with Steven Over. We'll try him tomorrow, but it's just us for the NFL Draft. Play of the day coming up. We'll run through some of these numbers courtesy of Sportsbook.com. Number 1, Teddy. Word around the campfire is Miles Jack is slipping in the draft. He could fall outside of the top 10. A lot of people concerned about his knee.
Yeah, and of course the over-under on where Miles Jack will be drafted, over-under 5.5. Whether he goes with the 5th pick would cash the under. If he goes with the 6th pick, he would cash the over. And there have been rumors that he could go at number 5. A guy with a tremendous amount of upside, but a guy who obviously was hurt in his junior year at UCLA, decided to go pro instead of going back to prove something to the scouts his senior year. As an athlete, he's as good as you're going to find in the draft, but whenever a guy is hurt, you always wonder if that draft stock starts to drop.
Let's go. How about some running backs? Well, at least one in the first round. Ezekiel Elliott. He said he knows what team's taking him. Cleveland's sitting there at number 8, and guess what? Will a running back go, or Elliott go, over under 8.5?
And that's such a Browns move to draft a running back in the first round.
Yes, it would.
Look at the history. And we went through all the quarterbacks. We haven't gone through the running backs. The running backs are even worse than the quarterbacks. Trent Richardson, he can't miss. Oh, I think he kind of missed.
Big time.
Last year was Gurley and Gordon going in the first round, and Gurley was pretty good. Gordon was very good in San Diego. But Elliott, I think there's a decent chance that Browns do make that move. They need talent. Obviously, they want to sell tickets. He's a hometown hero. Played for the Buckeyes. He is a natural fit there, but you're asking me, I wouldn't take any running back in the first round. I wouldn't even think about it.
Yeah, I'm
with
you.
What about Darren Lee? I mean, what's your take on Darren Lee? I've seen a lot of props on him. 10.5 is his draft over-under.
Looks like an over. I see all the mocks have him going over there.
And obviously the mocks, you take them with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
But certainly, and then Joey Bosa, another guy who the mock draft seemed to like a whole lot. Extraordinary talent. What do you think of Bosa as an NFL player?
I think he'd be a good pro. And I know we'll have more on Bosa coming up, but I think he'll go top 10. Would that surprise you?
No, there's talk that he could go top 5.
Yeah. Yep. How about Paxton Lynch? Jets need a quarterback. Could he fall to Denver? They need to draft a quarterback. And you're hearing some stuff. Now, I know social media ignores some of that stuff, what you see on Twitter, because a lot of people are getting lied to, especially in the media. But you're seeing maybe the Saints could take a quarterback, too, as they have to get somebody to replace Breeze eventually.
Yeah, but again, it's the kind of thing with Elliott that we were just talking about, where, I know so what team already said they're going to take me. Everybody lies, okay?
Yes, right.
You have to play a little bit of counterfeiting in terms of where you're thinking you're going to go and where you're going to see misdirections, and everybody's going to lie. They're going to lie right to your face when it comes to the draft. So all of these mocks were like, oh, I'm sure they're going to take so-and-so. Nah, not so much. I mean, I'm not sold on Paxton Lynch as an NFL quarterback, and I'm not sold as the guy who's not the top guy as someone that you want to waste a first-rounder on. And he's definitely a project, and he definitely didn't play his best football against the better defenses that he faced, and he's coming from a smaller conference school, all of which are red flags in my mind. So, we showed you the quarterbacks. We showed you how ugly the quarterback results are. Someone's going to take Paxton Lynch in the first round. I would think so.
Yeah.
And he's got that. Yeah, they fall in love with the body. He's got a prototype body. He does. He's huge. Is that going to make him a good NFL player? I wouldn't count on it.
Lynch is off the board. Does Denver take Connor Cook then?
I mean, I don't look at Connor Cook as being the guy that's going to take your franchise to the next level. I don't even look at him as a Brock Osweiler type of project. I mean, I really don't, Pauly. And the Broncos certainly have plenty of needs. It's not just quarterback where they had big offseason losses. That whole offense needs work. Defense is going to be pretty good again. Obviously, defense is good enough to win a Super Bowl last year and hasn't suffered major losses. But they need offensive line help. They need skill position talent. A lot more than just quarterback problems in Denver right now.
Wide receivers. Here's a prop over under 3.5 wide receivers in the first round. Under $1.60. Coleman, Fuller, Dotson out of TCU, Treadwell. I would go Cole. I'm surprised a lot of people have Coleman late first, early second. He could be the best of the group.
Yeah, and I'm seeing these, and when you're looking around at the mock drafts and the like, I'm seeing these guys bouncing all over the place. I don't know that Fuller's going in the first round. I do think that Coleman, Treadwell, and Dotson are all going to go in the first round. So I would play that under before I play the over of 4 wide receivers. But out of that 3, I mean, Treadwell's the guy that supposedly had the monster numbers. Coleman's the guy who has the incredible speed. But when it comes to collegiate production, Josh Doctson was a monster.
Yes. He
really was. And if I'm drafting, I want someone that actually did something in college. I don't want Treadwell, who was supposedly all that, and then kind of, he had his share of big games, but it wasn't every week. Doctson was every week. You could count on him to make big plays. I'd take him over anyone else, in that receiving corps. But, of course, what happened at the Combine? He didn't run fast enough. Oh, he measured an inch shorter. The stuff that people make these decisions on that has nothing to do with film, has to do with the measurables, and their measurables didn't treat Josh Doctson particularly well.
Totally with you. Ignore the underwear Olympics. Look at the game film. All right, time for Money Time, play of the day. Part 2 coming up tomorrow, by the way, with the draft. Let's go Joey Bosa to be drafted ahead of Miles Jack, minus 250. Laying a big price there, but it's big for a reason. As Jack, again, I had an NFL agent tell me they're concerned about his knee. He could fall out of the top 10 and maybe a deep dive in the first round. So let's go Bosa ahead of Jack with the play of the day here on Sports B.I.T. Excellent job, Teddy. Back tomorrow, NBA playoffs, NFL draft, Sports B.I.T. Betting insight today on SBRpicks.com.